Well, it has been an extraordinarily productive 7 months here at the County Council. I have just a partial list of things that we have accomplished prior to our meeting tomorrow, and then after that we're going to go on a break. In the area of social justice, we joined enlightened communities across the United States in requiring paid sick and safe leave. We'll have this list for you. We enacted landmark legislation making safe, culturally competent, and available childcare a top policy priority. In economic development and competitiveness, we revolutionized the county's approach to economic development and dismantled an entire county department. We created a development ombudsman position to resolve issues throughout the development process. We repealed the Department of Transportation's authority to approve record plats to simplify and speed up the development process. We established an ad hoc committee on liquor control and are recommending reforms to improve liquor control operations and expand choices and improve customer service. We passed the Aspen Hill Minor Master Plan Amendment and the Sandy Spring Rural Village Plan. In consumer protection, we prevented county residents from supporting an abusive trade in puppies. We protected our residents from predatory towing practices. We moved our taxicab industry into the 21st century and created a fund to help increase accessible taxi service. And we've established training for volunteers who serve on the boards of common ownership communities. To benefit the environment, we prohibited the use of polystyrene food service products and required the use of compostable or recyclable food service products by the county and its contractors. We established a green bank to promote investment in clean energy technology. And we passed a resolution to support the use of plant-derived material for our artificial turf playing fields. In the area of good government, we established the Public Election Fund Committee to advise the council on funds needed for the voluntary public campaign financing system and hosted a public information session about the new election law with the Democratic and Republican parties in Montgomery County. And we overhauled the county's ethics law to conform to state law. In the area of public health and housing, we prohibited the use of electronic cigarettes in public places where traditional smoking is prohibited and established an excise tax on the distribution of electronic cigarette products. We enacted legislation to crack down on bodywork establishments, which may serve as fronts for human trafficking. We endorsed a 10-year plan to eradicate homelessness in Montgomery County, and we added incentives for new accessible communities, including features in residential housing to improve accessibility for all ages and those with disabilities. In May, we approved a responsible budget for fiscal year 2016 that holds the line on property taxes. And now, in response to a projected revenue shortfall resulting from the Supreme Court's decision in the Wynn case on May 18th and other factors, we have responded to the county executive's suggestion that $51 million should be added to our cash reserve with a plan to add $54 million to our cash reserve. The council's proposal will be acted on by the full county council tomorrow based on the work of committees. All of this work has been accomplished cooperatively with a great spirit and enthusiasm from all members. I feel enormously fortunate to work with my 8 colleagues. These are serious policymakers who delve into the issues before them, and as you see, are enormously productive. I think we deserve a break, and I'm looking forward to having a few weeks off. But I do feel that we are demonstrating government that works. So let me take any questions you may have.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
On the latest developments in the Purple Line and the negotiations going on, can you talk a little bit more about what we're going to see as a result of that?
Regarding latest developments on the Purple Line, I want to thank and congratulate County Executive Leggett, who negotiated, I think, very effectively with Secretary Pete Ron. And whereas initially Secretary Ron had requested a $50 million contribution from Montgomery County, the state is now requesting a $40 million contribution. And it's our understanding we will be asking that those funds would be payable in the years 2020 and 2021.
When you look at the development in Montgomery County over the past decade, it's been transformative in general areas. One of the most high profile is White Flint Mall. As you know, tomorrow in federal court, this case between White Flint and the learners is going to go to trial. There's a motion now to admit a drone video that was put up and got a lot of attention.
It did.
Last week. I
Yeah.
don't know if you saw it.
I
guess
did.
you
I
saw
did. It went viral. Yeah.
Preview.
Yeah.
I guess brass tacks on this, though, is that this is getting a little nasty between the two of them. And I know you can't, the trial starts tomorrow, and you can't dive into who you think is who's right or wrong. But what message would you have to both parties about the importance of getting together on this project and what it will mean for Montgomery County if this is stalled in litigation that just drags on and on and on?
That's just not a legislative matter. I mean, we certainly view White Flint as the most exciting near-term opportunity for growing our tax base. Several council members have been urging the planning board to move more rapidly on the White Flint 2 plan because we don't think it's especially controversial, and we think that there are opportunities in the very near term, as I mentioned, to attract jobs and investment. And certainly the former White Flint Mall is also a very near-term opportunity, and I think the public will benefit when there's a more pedestrian-friendly layout, when there's new shopping and retail opportunities. I know my constituents are excited with what's already going on in the Pike District, and the location of the White Flint Mall will just continue the very popular and successful increase there in jobs and investment.
I know in the budget cuts that are going to be voted on tomorrow, what are going to be some of the hardest hit areas there? I remember seeing the Education Committee working on it, and their main request was, we've gotten to a point at class sizes where we don't want to go any further. Is that something that you were able to accomplish looking at these cuts?
It's up to the school system is being asked, and they've agreed, to identify $10 million in savings. Precisely how they'll do that is up to them. In a nearly $2.5 billion budget, there are certain contracts that don't spend out as anticipated. Things change all the time. Staff size, they've got a wide range of options. $10 million sounds like a lot to you and me, but when you're managing, as I say, nearly $2.5 billion, I'm confident they'll find a way to work it out. I don't anticipate their class size will increase as a result of the county council's savings plan.
Would you call what's before the council tomorrow in terms of making some of the reductions like it recommended, but then adding the deferrals of the capital projects? Is that a compromise in your mind?
I think the county council has acted very responsibly. We recognize the need to add to our cash reserve, and we are doing it in a way that does not harm those of our residents who most depend on help from the county government. We did not agree to some of the county executive's proposals that we felt were not consistent with the values that we have as a community. We did not agree to eliminate the vouchers that will house homeless veterans. We did not agree to reduce the wage supplement for attendants for the developmentally disabled. Our goal is to keep them at 25% above the minimum wage, which is just $11.93 an hour. Had the executive's proposal been adopted, many of those workers would slip below that amount, below $11.93 an hour. I don't think anyone here in this room could imagine what it would be like living in Montgomery County at that wage, and so we're going to maintain at least that bare minimum level of subsidy. There's many other examples where I think the council responded. We rolled up our sleeves, we went through all of the executive's proposals, and we're sending him a package which is a larger addition to our cash reserve than what he requested from us. So I think we've done, as I mentioned, a very responsible job.
Last time we sat here and talked with you, you said the cash reserves were, I think, at a record high.
That's correct.
And that you didn't see the need for some of these cuts. What's changed?
Well, we did not adopt many of the cuts recommended by the executive. I always said that I thought a savings plan was prudent and appropriate, and I think the savings plan that we are responding with is entirely merited, given the need to maintain a healthy cash reserve. We believe that we can get through fiscal 16, but the amount that will be necessary to turn back to the state in years fiscal 17 and 18 is substantially more. And so if we add to our cash reserve in 16, that cash reserve carries over, and we're in a healthier position as we contemplate additional changes that are going to need to be made in our compensation structure and the overall cost of government. We're facing a real squeeze in 17 and 18 in particular as a result of the Wynn decision. And so this savings plan does not end the conversation about how to right size and manage the cost of government more efficiently.
Aside from the lawn pesticide bill, what does the agenda look like when you come back in the next, say, 3 to 6 months after you come back?
Well, there's a number of bills pending. Council members have a lot of proposals. I haven't, certainly I'm interested in the pesticide discussion. That's a legislation that I'm very interested in. And I think that we really need to engage in this conversation to prepare for the fiscal 17 budget. I don't think the discussion is done. I'm looking forward to OLO's work on our compensation structure and whether we are out of line with comparable governments in the region and around the country. And I suspect that the Government Operations Committee, which I'm not a member of, but I've been in touch with its chair, will be having some very lively discussions about this issue of right sizing and the cost of government. If there's going to be a property tax next year, I want to be confident that we have really looked at whether the cost of government is sustainable and whether we are retrieving all of the revenues to which we're entitled before we contemplate a property tax increase.
And the state of play with the lawn bill, what's your sense right now of how it's going to survive and what form it's going to take at the end of the day?
The Transportation, Infrastructure, Energy, and Environment Committee has a meeting scheduled now on September 19th. And I anticipate that committee will suggest some changes to the bill. Mr. Berliner has already recommended some changes. I'm looking forward to a thoughtful conversation. I'm working with our legal staff to clarify what is the list of prohibited substances. I've conceded that it makes people anxious to refer to lists developed by foreign governments. I think that that needs to go. And I'm hoping that Mr. Berliner and I will cooperatively reach agreement, but if we don't, there are suggestions he's made that I don't support, then I'll hope that the full council will stick with the bill that it co-sponsored. But I recognize there's a need for some changes to the bill. One of the major ones I just mentioned, the list. We shouldn't be reliant on lists developed by governments outside the United States. Please.
I have some questions about the Confederate statue across
Sure.
the street.
Yes.
One, first of all, have you seen the vandalism today?
I saw a photograph of it. I was thinking about walking over there before this meeting, but I saw a photograph of it.
So you see it says Black Lives Matter.
It says Black Lives Matter.
So first, can you comment just on vandalizing that statue?
I think vandalism is never appropriate. Black lives matter, and we're part of the national conversation in which the African American community is seeking recognition for its very legitimate grievances. And it's not at all surprising that images of the Confederacy would get a response. They're being reviewed in states and counties and cities, all over the United States. I think we're an enlightened community. I think we can handle this discussion in a responsible way. I'm sorry that the vandalism occurred, but I'm not surprised. And so this afternoon there will be an off-the-record meeting with no elected officials and no media, where community stakeholders will be able to freely express their opinion out of the public eye. And I'm hoping that we can reach a consensus as to the ultimate location of the statue. The county executive has said that the statue will be moved. I agree with his decision in that regard, but I do think that process is important. And except for the vandalism, thus far, we've not had real friction in the community. I don't think we've had community members pitted against each other on this issue. And so I have been hoping all along that as an enlightened community, we would come to a conclusion that everyone could feel good about, and that's what we're striving for.
And explain to me the process, because people have said that the county executive doesn't have authority to have it removed. What will be the process through the elected officials?
So it's kind of a new situation, and some of the legal issues won't be resolved until they're tested. We were initially told, our staff has looked into this, I anticipated that this would come up. Everything that I have done, and I won't try to speak for Mr. Leggett, but we're responding to our constituents on this. This concern was raised after the murders in Charleston, South Carolina, as it has been raised with respect to Confederate symbols and veneration of the Confederacy all over the country. So I didn't seek to insert myself into this discussion. I just anticipated that the discussion would arise and that we ought to have an answer to it. My colleagues overwhelmingly feel here at the council that the statue should be moved, that to have it on county property in the heart of the county seat implies an endorsement it says that we shall not fail to love the thin gray line. We don't love the thin gray line in 2015. This is a different day. And whatever was going on in 1913, when the Daughters of the Confederacy commissioned the statue and erected the statue, we're in a very different place today. But we haven't yet determined where the statue will ultimately be located. There are several sites under discussion, and I'm hoping that the outcome will be a consensus outcome, and that's what we're working for.
So is that what the meeting is this afternoon?
That's the purpose of the meeting, to see if there's room for consensus between historic advocates, advocates for the African American community, representatives of the city of Rockville, and it was our staff, Marlene Michelson's suggestion, and I thought it was a very good one, that meeting be a private meeting where people would feel free to exchange views with each other without being quoted on television, and no elected officials will be present, so there's no open meetings laws issues.
And so the decision that comes out of that meeting will be the decision that goes to the city council for the final?
So I'm the president of the county council, and the statue is on county property, and it is the interpretation of our legal staff that it is a county determination to make. The mayor and city council of the city of Rockville held a public hearing on the matter last week, and they have communicated with County Executive Leggett that they would like to see the Rockville Historic Preservation Commission respected, and that the Rockville Historic Preservation Commission should express its views prior to moving the statue. That's the city council, the Rockville City Council's view. I don't think that that's a settled question, and I hope that if a consensus emerges, I don't know if there will be a decision at today's meeting. I don't know what will come out of today's meeting, but if there is a way, you never get 100% unanimity on anything, but if there's a way to identify an ultimate location for the statue that seems broadly acceptable to the community, then I would hope that would minimize any further acts of vandalism or things that sort of pit residents against other residents. I don't think that the causes of the Civil War are controversial any longer, and I think that the purpose of the statue was kind of to cloud what the Confederacy really was about, and it was consistent with a lot of veneration of the Confederacy that took place after the war was over. And I think today we're coming to what I think is a better and deeper understanding of what was going on then, not the Civil War, but the post-Civil War years, where there was an effort to kind of romanticize the South and its mission, and the antebellum South. And I don't think we romanticize that today. It is history. It's a fascinating historical discussion. No one is trying to cleanse or erase history. History is history. And we've all learned a great deal in the course of this conversation. So I welcome it. And I think here in Montgomery County, the conversation thus far, with the exception of the vandalism, has been very civil.
Do you think that there should be charges filed if they catch the people who did the vandalism?
That's not a legislative matter. I mean, that would be for.
You just said it was.
That would be for the police to decide.
Something like
I'm not surprised. I mean,
Right.
I'm not surprised by it. I'm disappointed by it, but I'm not surprised by the vandalism.
Can I just be clear on who is meeting, and again, why the feeling is that it can't be public? And I say that because it's obviously a very touchy issue.
Right.
Rockville managed to have a public meeting
They
on
did.
it, and there was no chair throwing. Why the need for this secrecy?
It isn't secrecy.
If it's closed.
Well, I appreciate the interest of the press in transparency, but the hope here is that there would be a comfort zone where community members who might initially disagree with each other have the opportunity to talk about alternatives without feeling like they have to be there as representatives of their members or of a particular point of view. I think it would be useful if, in the course of the conversation, people maybe examine their points of view and maybe change their point of view, and I think that's much less likely to happen if the meeting is televised, and there will not be any elected officials present, so we're not compelled to have an open meeting. And so there may be future meetings that are open, and nothing that happens in the meeting is secret, but I think the presence of reporters is sometimes inhibitive of a free and open discussion. But I won't be in the room. I don't know what's going to happen there, and I don't know if decisions will be made.
Can we talk about the 80th anniversary? It was yesterday. Can we talk about improvements, what else the county can do to help the community? when it comes to 88?
Well, the county executive held an event last week. My schedule didn't permit me to attend. I think we've accomplished a great deal. Our ride on bus fleet is largely accessible. Just last week, we added 50 taxi cab licenses for disabled accessible vans. I think trying to be inclusive and being aware of the needs of every element of the population, including those who can't get around on their own, who may be wheelchair bound or disabled in some other way, is just part of being the enlightened community that we are. I think Montgomery County's always taken it seriously, but certainly we can continue to improve. Anything further?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
more questions.
Yes,
Silver
Aline.
Spring Transit Center.
Yes.
Can we get an update on that? Do we have dates? I know some drivers are gonna get some training soon, so
Right.
can we get an update on that?
So the matter's in WMATA's hands now. WMATA did communicate with the county last week, identifying punch list items that still need to be attended to. The county's role is essentially complete. That is, the county is prepared to turn it over to WMATA. But WMATA has listed a few things that still need to be attended to. But fundamentally, the repairs have been made. And so, as far as I know, it'll open this year. But the precise opening date is now in WMATA's hands. WMATA has to work out whatever its questions are. And so it's for WMATA now to decide.
WMATA's had its hands full a little bit lately. Are you talking weeks, months? How long do you think?
You know, you need to direct that question to David Dice. You know, I'm hoping it's weeks and not months.
As
But
far as all the structural concrete, all of the issues that were plugging it for all
the
that
repairs have
stuff?
been made.
Thank you.
Anything else?
You going on vacation?
I am.
Where you going?
I'm going to Brazil, which is where my wife grew up, and we'll be visiting with her family. As Alini knows, Brazil's a beautiful country,
Yes.
and I'm looking forward very much to time off with my family and my wife's family.
Wear sunscreen.
And I'll wear lots of sunscreen. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna be in a beautiful place, so.
Thank you very much.